Hey.
Alright, so if you saw my most recent video on this channel, then you might be wondering why I am now making a video celebrating the Miami Heat, and I would just like to put it on the record, I'm not celebrating the Heat, I am celebrating Jimmy Butler, because if you actually go back and watch that video, I mentioned how Jimmy Butler is a really fun, exciting player. He is one of the better playoff risers in the current league, probably even the history of the league. But it's the rest of this Miami Heat team that I just cannot stand to watch, and I still stand on my opinion that I do not want to continue watching this team in the second round, but it is looking more and more likely like that will be the case, and if that does end up being the case, then I will respect the upset. An 8 seed being a 1 seed is something that very rarely happens. And further than that, I will respect Jimmy Butler probably for the rest of his career, especially for this insane Game 4 performance. But before we get into the actual tape, I have some quick stats I want to share just to further explain just how weird of a playoff series this has been. Prior to Game 4, the broadcast showed stats comparing Miami in the regular season to the playoffs. It was just crazy. They have almost a 15 point per game increase. Their shooting percentage is up 10%, their three-point shooting percentage is up 16%, and they're averaging about 3 more assists per game, which is ridiculous shooting numbers, and a really good indicator of, yes, this Miami Heat team is, I guess you could say, playing well, but it's also just a really timely hot shooting streak that is putting them over the top right now. And then focusing more on Jimmy Butler himself, he has been absolutely ridiculous in the first quarter in this entire series. So far, Game 1, he had 14 points on 6 of 8 shooting. Game 2, he had 13 points on 5 of 5 shooting. Game 3, 17 on 6 of 8 shooting. And then this most recent game that we're about to get into had 22 points on 9 of 10 shooting, while the rest of his team scored 6 on 2 of 9 shooting. But overall, there's not much you can really say about this performance. It was an all-time great game, really efficient shooting night, and I just personally love how Jimmy just has such a good feel for the game of basketball offensively that he's able to score so many points on not a lot of shots. He gets to the free throw line, which is something that a lot of players could utilize in their game more. And I just personally love the way that he is always on attack, always aggressive. He very rarely settles for jump shots just because he knows that's not his game. And his footwork in the paint and on drives is just impeccable. And there are a lot of players in the league that could learn a lot from watching some Jimmy Butler tape. But that's enough of that. Let's get into the actual film. As I mentioned, he had 22 points in the first quarter, and that is where we're going to start, as he got his first bucket of the game here. Just a quick early shot clock drive on Jrue Holiday, and he hits the little step back midi over the good defense for his first bucket. Next, a couple minutes later, we saw the aggression start to show early as getting guarded by Middleton, gets a screen from Kevin Love and just goes right at Giannis, who's in the drop, and dunks on his head. Brilliant play. Then on this next possession, again has Middleton on him, rejects the screen from Max Strus, isolates Middleton and just hits the pull-up midi in his face. And a quick side note as we are at this point in the video, but there was a lot of Middleton abuse in this game. He's not normally this bad of a defender, I feel like, but Jimmy was just getting whatever he wanted against them, and not even really a slight to Chris Middleton because there was no defender on the Milwaukee Bucks team that was able to stop Jimmy Butler in this game, but especially Middleton had a rough night. Then here on the next Miami Heat possession down the floor, we have some ball movement, ball gets to Kevin Love, and Giannis just simply falls asleep and lets Jimmy Butler cut back door. But again, Butler just taking his time, so patient in the paint, and works his way to the right side of the hoop for a much easier layup and avoids the Giannis rejection. Then again on the next possession, I'm going to highlight another theme from this game for Jimmy, but they get the stop. Ball's getting pushed and transition, and just no one picks up Jimmy Butler, who's able to hit the easy floater over a Brook Lopez that is sitting in the paint. And for some reason, y'all have seen the box scores, Jimmy Butler had 56 points in this game, all by himself, and for some reason, the Milwaukee Bucks just refused to pick him up or put a body on him in transition. As you can see here, a little bit later in the first, skipping ahead a little bit, but Jimmy Butler trails the play. Bobby Portis is supposed to be the one guarding him, but comes over and helps as a third man on a already well-covered Duncan Robinson pick and roll. and the ball gets swung to Jimmy, and there's just nobody on him as he drives into the paint and draws the foul for the and one floater. But then there are also plays like this, where they're going to play at the rim, and Jimmy Butler is just the first one down the court in a one-on-one situation, posts up Grayson Allen before the defense can get set, isolates, and hits the step-back midi. And then here, fast forward to the fourth quarter, another Miami Heat rebound. They push the ball really quickly. They find Jimmy, who his defender is sitting in the paint, and that is just another really easy pull-up midi for Jimmy, who at this point was just straight cooking. And again, I just want to go back to my original point on the transition buckets, that transition's just the easiest way to score the ball in basketball. And for someone to have 40-something points at this point of the game and to not pick him up and transition is a huge reason why the Bucks lost this game. Now going back to the first quarter, I love this play design from Eric Spoelstra here. It starts with Jimmy Butler getting some elevator screens to catch the ball that then leads into a double drag, and then he rejects the screen because it gets walled off by Joe Ingles. Great defense on that little play there. But Jimmy Butler just goes for a rescreen from Kevin Love. He has Jrue Holiday on the hip, eventually gets handed off to Bobby Portis in the paint, and once again just hits the patented Jimmy Butler step back midi. Another thing to highlight is that Jimmy Butler had the 3-ball going in this game. He didn't shoot it crazy efficiently, but even for Jimmy Butler to just hit a couple threes is something that, as a Heat fan, you are going to take, because the 3-point shooting has not always been there for Jimmy. Play breaks down, shot gets blocked to the rim, and you're able to just kick it out, and he just steps into a really confident 3 from the corner right over Jrue Holiday. Then to wrap up the first quarter, this was his last bucket of his 22 points. Again, just to highlight again, there was nobody on this Bucks team that could stop him, and that's just how red hot he was. Here he gets some screens, eventually gets walled off by Giannis, he kicks out and resets, and then just straight up takes Giannis one-on-one and hits another step back midi. Another really impressive, aspect of this 56-point game is that he only had 2 points in the second quarter in its entirety, yet that did not stop him from impacting the game defensively and as an offensive player off the ball. For example, this play here, again, Jimmy did not handle much of an offensive load in the second quarter after having the 22 first quarter points, yet still we can see him on the glass, working the glass, gets a nice tip out to Kevin Love, and although he doesn't make the 3, just getting extra opportunities like that is a very easy and good way to make sure that you have a better chance of winning basketball games. In the third quarter, Jimmy Butler got back to scoring the ball and being aggressive, as he was living at the rim, and this one didn't even really settle for any outside shots for the entire quarter. And it started here as he gets a deep post up on Jrue Holiday, and Jimmy Butler catching the ball, pretty much in the paint is an automatic bucket on nights like these. Then next possession down the court, they try to get another Jimmy Butler post up on Jrue Holiday set up, but he ends up posting up Brook Lopez that turns into an ISO as he cuts out to the 3-point line, and just uses a great speed burst off the triple threat to get the advantage on Brook Lopez. And once again, amazing footwork in the paint as he finishes with Giannis and Brook Lopez right there. Then he closes the third quarter with one last bucket right here. Pretty simple stuff, as it's just a ball swing from Kyle Lowry to Butler, who gets the screen from Bam. Giannis is too deep in the drop, and that is another easy midi for Jimmy Buckets. Then once we got to the fourth quarter, he subs in around like the 8-minute mark, 8:30 mark. And it was around this time where the Heat went on their big, 13-0 run, whatever it exactly was, that brought them back into the game, and it was all sparked and, kept going by Jimmy Butler. It all started here with this isolation on Chris Middleton, where he just works him with the dribble and then drives into the paint for the easy lay-in. Then a couple minutes later, they hunt that Chris Middleton matchup again with the Duncan Robinson screen. Jimmy this time drives left and gets the and one. Again, Middleton was just looking helpless on every single Jimmy Butler possession that he defended. Then here, Miami down 1, Kyle Lowry forces a steal as the Bucks are trying to call a timeout. Ball's loose, gets up to Jimmy Butler, who's all alone, rattles the rim with a dunk that gives Miami their first lead of the night with 3:17 left to go in the game. Really exciting play, and it was at this point that at least I personally felt like Miami really had a chance to win this game, and the Bucks were finally lost momentum. And then these last 2 buckets are probably the best evidence that this was just Jimmy Butler's night. As first here we have him receiving the screen, and they try to go under the screen, show with Chris Middleton. Jrue Holiday tries to go under, but he just does not recover in time. And although they probably weren't expecting Jimmy Butler to pull up for 3, he did, and he drained it in typical Jimmy Butler fashion to once again give Miami the lead with a minute left. And then next possession, after getting another stop, ball is pushed down the court, and Jimmy, very early in the shot clock, hits Drew Holiday with another step back, toe unfortunately on the line, but still a huge jumper regardless. And although it wasn't quite the dagger, I think it was at this point where it was safe to say Miami was winning this game. So those are all of the Jimmy buckets from this 56-point Game 4 performance. And just to recap the game a little bit, it's funny because the Bucks didn't really even play a bad game. If you go back and look at the stats, it was pretty even, at least for the team stats in this case. But the Bucks were in control for the entire game, literally until that 3-minute mark where Jimmy had the dunk to put Miami up. You know, Giannis had a great game. He had a triple-double, was a great playmaker in this one. Brook Lopez was dominating the paint as usual. As for the rest of the Miami Heat team, they're pretty bad, to be honest. Outside of Caleb Martin was the only player who wasn't pissing down his pants 24/7. Bam Adebayo just continues to look lost offensively at times. Kyle Lowry had some really bad turnovers late in the game. And if it wasn't for this Jimmy Butler 56-point performance, it's likely this would have been another blowout for the Milwaukee Bucks. Plus, the series would have been tied 2-2, and it was likely at that point that Miami would probably be going home soon. But Jimmy pulls through, all-time playoff performance. Heat now up 3-1. Game 5 is going to be later tonight, at least assuming I get this video out on time. Now, will Miami go on to win the series? For their sake, I hope they will. But as a Celtics fan at this point, you know, we're either getting the Heat upsetting the Bucks as an 8 seed, or we're getting Miami blowing a 3-1 lead. So it is pretty much a win-win scenario for us. But regardless, I hope y'all don't take this performance for granted. This was an all-time playoff performance done by the ultimate playoff riser himself, Jimmy Butler. And at this point, I'm not sure what LT has to do to gain everybody's respect. Maybe outside of, like, you know, win a championship and all that stuff, but I digress. Anyway, that's enough from me. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and follow me on Twitter at KokinosNoah. I be tweeting sometimes about the games and such. Have a good one.